Hello, everyone, and welcome to another beautiful game from round 7 of this year's Sinquefield Cup. We have Alireza Firouzja versus Praggnanandhaa, and both of them are having a decent tournament. Praggnanandhaa, an even better one. He's been co-leading in some rounds, and now going into this round, Fabiano is leading, but he is in close pursuit. And the only player Alireza lost to is Fabiano Caruana. He defeated young Krzysztof Duda, and he drew all of the other games. And Alireza started with a very strong victory against world champion Gukesh. Then 5 draws, and then now he faces Alireza here with the black piece. So it's a pretty crazy game. I'm pretty sure you guys will enjoy it. Let's dive straight into it. Alireza with white opens with pawn to e4. We have pawn to c5 by Prague, knight f3, knight to c6, and now not pawn to b4, which is my favorite, but Alireza will play it at some point in the game. Make no mistake about that. We have bishop to b5, the Nyezhmetdinov-Rossolimo attack, pawn to g6. We have castles and bishop to g7. Pawn to c3 and pawn to e5. Knight f6, the most popular here. Pawn to e5, the second most popular choice, which is usually met with pawn to d4 or pawn to d3 or rook to e1. Many moves are possible here, but here we have the very rare bishop captures on c6, particularly in this position. And it isn't considered all that great if you consider what the engine says. But sometimes at this level, players go beyond what the engine says. So, d captures on c6. We have pawn to d3, queen to e7, and now, there are maybe 5 games in the database. Rook h3 is an on-move, rook to e1 is an on-move, bishop to e3 is an on-move, pawn to a4. Pawn to a4 is an on-move, but here we have knight b to d2, and it is now as of move 8 already that we have a completely new game. Prague goes knight f6. We have pawn to a4, stopping any pawn to b5 action. We have castles kingside and knight to c4, which is very nice. There's no d pawn. b5 has been stopped by playing a4, so the knight on c4 is very, very strong. You can keep it there at some point. Might come to a5, might come to e3 if you need control of d5 or f5. So it's a very versatile knight. We have knight to e8, trying to counter that knight by playing knight to d6, but also freeing up some space for the f pawn to be pushed forward if needed. Bishop to e3, putting pressure on c5, developing a bishop. Knight to c7. And now pawn to h3, just stopping any bishop to g4 ideas. We have rook to d8, nicely aligning the rook with the white queen, and Alireza moves it. We have queen to c2, and now pawn to b6. And again, you have a position where Alireza could just continue playing with something like rook f to e1, or rook f to d1, or rook f to b1, maybe, depending on which pawn you're planning on pushing. But no, he pushes pawn to b4 right away. And Alireza is sort of famous in this regard. As we all know, he watches a lot of videos on my channel, and he knows pawn to b4 is almost always the strongest move. Here, while it's not maybe objectively the strongest, it is still very, very strong, and it will have to be taken into consideration by Prague. He plays c captures on b4. We have c captures and knight to a6. And now, how is Alireza to defend that b pawn? Definitely not easy. And everyone thought his plan originally was to advance the pawn to b5, which is not terrible. For example, knight comes to b4, and then the queen is attacked. The queen moves to let's say b1, and then you defend the knight with c5, and then something like a5, and looks looks decent. But no, after knight a6, Alireza played bishop to d2, and he's they're almost equal on time, 40 minutes, 39 minutes, but it is a pawn sacrifice, or rather, it's a pawn sacrifice before the pawn on e5 is captured, and then the c6 pawn will be hanging, and also the d3 pawn will be hanging. So there's quite a lot to calculate here. Praggnanandhaa accepts the challenge. He plays knight captures on b4. We have bishop captures on b4. Queen captures on b4, knight c captures on e5, and now defending with queen to d6, or rather attacking with queen to d6. And now, again, nothing wrong with trading. You could capture on c6, queen captures on d3, let's say move to c1, rook to e8, getting the rook out of harm's way, and now something like rook d1 attacks the queen, and the queen has to be very, very careful in choosing a retreat square, something like queen c3 or queen d2, because capturing the pawn falls to rook e1, and then black is just lost. So it's still very much playable. but you have to be incredibly precise. Alireza plays pawn to d4. He almost always chooses the most complicated continuation and challenges Pragg to calculate properly. And Pragg does. He plays pawn to c5. He says, well, that is a very impressive move. The only thing really defending that e5 knight is the pawn on d4. So I'm just going to attack it. We have rook f to d1, nicely aligning the rook with the black queen, bishop to b7. Pawn to a5, and now rook a to c8. Pragg fully mobilizes his pieces. We have queen to b3, now putting pressure on that f7 pawn. And here, they're already down to considerably. Pragg is down to 16 minutes, Alireza down to 4 minutes, but still you have to be precise. You have to defend the f7 pawn, but do you play queen c7 or do you play queen e6 and offer a queen trade? Both have merit. For example, if you offer a queen trade, let's say captures, you trade on b6, let's say captures, rook to a7. Okay, you can't go after the bishop just yet, the e4 pawn is saying. So let's say you play d captures on c5, rook captures on d1, let's say rook captures on d1, and now b captures on c5, rook to e1, you defend the pawn, and now c4, and there's very little you can do about the passed c pawns. You can't go rook e1, you have to block with knight to c4, then bishop captures on e4, and you can try playing this. You're down a pawn, maybe you can hold it, it is up to you. So that is one way to do it. But Pragg goes queen to c7. He feels that he can do much better than this. Plus, Alireza is much lower on time, so why not keep the position as complicated as possible? Okay, a captures. Alireza brings the rook up the board. Rook to a7, and now Pragg plays bishop captures on e5. And there is only one good reply for Pragg, and that is knight capture for Alireza, and that is knight captures on e5. Alireza did not play it, but the reason it's the only good reply is that you have to allow rook captures on d4, and after, let's say, a trade on d4, captures, now you block with knight to d3. And the bishop is pinned. The bishop cannot move. So the queen will unpin, but now you're going to play queen captures on b6. And now after bishop captures on e4, you will trade captures. And again, you're down a pawn. It's a passed d pawn. If you can hold it, you can survive this endgame. So that is the only way to do it. Alireza played d captures on e5, and he played it with 3 seconds on the clock. Not the move I'm talking about with the title, as that's referring to another move. And Pragg has to choose between pawn to c4 and first trading on d1. He decided to trade on d1 first. More precise was to advance the pawn to c4 right away, but I guess he was also playing on Alireza's time. To quickly give you an idea, once the queen moves, you will then trade on d1. Let's say captures, rook d8 attacks the queen to c2 and pawn to c3, and now the problem is there's nothing you can play, because whatever you try, let's say you try to open up the position with some h4 e6 action, b5, and okay, you're just going to defend your pawn, and there's nothing white can do here. Pawn to h5, you're going to play queen to b6, attack the rook. Once the rook moves, pawn to b4, and that's all there is to it. You can still try and do some damage with maybe h6 captures or pawn to e6, but none of it actually works. So that was the way to do it. Pragg played rook captures on d1 first, and now he gives Alireza again a chance, at least. Queen captures on d1, and Pragg advances the pawn to c4. And now there's a move that can save Alireza, maybe even a couple of moves, but Alireza played queen to a4, and he made the move with 1 second on the clock. So he had less than a minute to decide here. Queen to d6 is very nice. Also, queen to d4 holds, but the reason for that is that after pawn to c3, which seems unstoppable, you will simply play knight e1. And there's no c2. If you play pawn to c2, the knight just captures. And remember, if you capture, you lose the bishop on b7. So what you would have to do after knight e1 is unpin queen to c6, but still you don't care. Now you can play pawn to e6, and after f captures, you will defend the e4 pawn with pawn to f3. Again, there's no c2. The knight covers that. And with the open 7th rank, you have all the compensation you need to hold this game to a draw. But yeah, after c4, Alireza played queen to a4. Made with 1 second on the clock, you can see that he's down to 31 seconds as there's a 30 seconds increment. And now Pragg just plays pawn to c3. And there's no stopping that pawn. Problem is, now if you play knight to e1, which was working in that line, now you can play queen to c6 with tempo, as the a4 queen is now attacked. And once you trade, let's say captures, and you play pawn to f3, defending, there's bishop b5. Okay, now you're not defending the pawn, but after bishop to b5, the pawn is nicely defended, and you're threatening pawn to c2, and if rook to a2, you play bishop c4, you attack the rook again, and if rook to c2, you attack it again, bishop to b3, the annoying light square bishop, rook to c1, pawn to c2, and now you have a defended pass pawn on c2. It's defended twice. Next you push the b pawn. You can also get the king into the game, help out, so literally everything is winning here. So after pawn to c3, knight to d4 was played by Alireza, sort of a brilliant bluff. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. The problem is there's more than one way to win this, and it's not all that difficult to spot. So what would you play here? Feel free to pause the video and try to find the absolute best move for Praggnanandhaa while I give you a couple of seconds. Yes, you could go with queen to c4, or a queen trade is definitely in order, but rook to d8 is much stronger, and this is what Pragg played. And now there's nothing more that Alireza can do, and it's not easy to even find a move. He tried pawn to e6, which sort of opens up the black king, but the problem is there's just no way to continue the attack. The idea behind knight captures on e6 doesn't work, because you will simply ignore that knight. And after you capture the queen, it's only a temporary queen sacrifice. You get another one with check. Then you pick up the knight again with check, defending the bishop. And after, let's say, king g1, you go queen to c1 check, king h2, and now queen to f4 check. And everything is nicely defended. Next, you're going to capture on e4, which will defend the bishop and also offer a queen trade, being up a full bishop. That's quite a lot. And of course, if g3, then you can even go for a nice quick checkmate. Okay, there's no rook d1. The queen covers d1 square, but you can go queen f1, and then rook to d2 will be, again, a very quick checkmate. So after f captures on e6, rook captures on b7 was played by Alireza. Queen captures, and now knight captures on e6, attacking the rook, but Pragg just went queen to d7, and he was in this position on move 31 that Alireza Firouzja resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So second loss for Alireza, first Fabiano Caruana, second one to Praggnanandhaa. Praggnanandhaa undefeated, like I said, started with a win against world champion Gukesh in round 1, then 5 draws, and now a great victory with black against Alireza Firouzja. And here you resign because you're just down too much material, and you have two connected soon to be connected pass pawns to worry about. The game might continue. Of course, you're not going to trade queens. You might play queen c4, threaten some nasty discoveries, but you can play queen d3, offer a queen trade. Of course, white will decline. Then you're going to play queen d2, again offer a queen trade. Of course, white will decline. Then you can play queen d1 check. Let's say king h2, b5 to get the queen off of this diagonal so you can nicely advance your pawn to victory. Let's say queen a2, and now you finally take away this diagonal from the white queen. Queen d2, queen b3, and now queen to b2, and you have successfully taken away this diagonal from the white queen. Nothing better than a nice discovery. Knight to d4 check. You will trade queens, captures, pawn to c2. Next comes rook to d1. You promote the pawn and win the game easily. And with this win, as Fabiano Caruana was leading by half a point, Fabiano drew his game, and Praggnanandhaa defeated Alireza, which means that now Praggnanandhaa and Fabiano are on even terms going into round 8. And we're going to show at least one more game from this round, and then we are going to discuss the standings. But, I mean, what an incredible performance by Pragg. He's absolutely crushing it this year. He won the Tata Steel Masters, he won the Superbet Chess Classic in Romania, and he won the Uz Chess Cup, and I mean that's just this year, and now he's co-leading the Sinquefield Cup with Fabiano Caruana. Currently number 4, I think, still on the live ratings. I can quickly check. Let me just still number 4, less than 4 points away from Fabiano Caruana. He overtook him at some point, then Fabiano overtook him. But yeah, currently in the top 5 in classical, absolutely incredible. And it seems that he's either winning or he's second, third and it doesn't seem like people will have a great time in the next candidates tournament, as Prague will probably do his bidding there. But yeah, we also thought that in the last one, so we'll see how it goes. But considering Prague's current form, it doesn't seem like anyone's stopping Prague anytime soon. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, we're going to check out at least one more game from round 7, and then we're going to discuss the standings as we usually do. I would like to thank Derek King, Hernan Escalante Jr., Robert Kiefer, Edmund Freeman, and Stephen Wentworth for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And if you still haven't, do try Lotus Chess. Learn how to play fighting chess and really improve your game. It will do wonders for every aspect of your game, guaranteed. See you soon.